I appreciate everybody joining us today. My name's Chris Voisey. I'll be helping to moderate the session and join in. Uh, and this particular webinar is part of a series we're doing, and we're trying to relate to the various roles that we have in your companies and give you some really solid information. This particular one, as you know, is how to get FinOps right with the next level of next generation governance. So it should be really good. And to help us deliver this and give you some really relevant information, I've got a couple of folks to introduce you to. First, I've got Bob Patel, our worldwide Vice President of Sales. He'll be chiming in a little bit here and there. But I'd really like to introduce everybody to Madhu Jagannathan, right? Sorry, I was rehearsing this and I already got it wrong, but maybe that just helps to break some ice here.
Well, I can introduce, maybe I can formally welcome Madhu. Hey, Madhu Jagannathan, great to have you with us here today. Appreciate making time for us.
Thank you so much. And Madhu comes to us from Inrix, and he is the CFO there. So, we want to try to relate as much as we can to you. Madhu, why don't we just start off with a bit of an introduction for yourself?
Sounds good. Thank you, Chris. And it's a pleasure to be on this webinar. Good morning to all of you. I'll just take a moment to introduce myself and the company that I work at. So my name is Madhu, and I serve as a CFO at Inrix. I joined the company 2.5 years ago, but I bring with me over 25 years of finance experience, having worked at large publicly traded companies such as Microsoft, but also high growth venture capital backed startups, including Dropbox during its pre-IPO days. Now, for those of you wondering who Inrix is a late stage venture capital backed company in the mobility technology space. We are backed by a number of well-known VC firms, including Venrock and August Capital, Kleiner Perkins, and Intel Capital. And Inrix was really founded with a simple mission, and that is to enable intelligent mobility and intelligent transportation. We thought about how to take data and apply it to the problem of transportation to solve some of the biggest problems that exist today in the transportation world. Now, whether it's time lost stuck in traffic, or carbon emissions, or gas wasted, or the 1 million plus deaths that happen on roadways every single year, we thought about how data and software could significantly improve the transportation space. And that's proven right. And in the last 15 years that we've been in business, we've had a pretty significant impact. The next slide. So what we really do is we provide mission critical software that enables our customers, such as departments of transportation in the United States, but also other countries around the world, to monitor road networks in real time and respond to traffic situations such as crashes, and in the process save lives. We also provide software that enable enterprise businesses, such as those in the last mile delivery services, to optimally route their drivers for pickup and drop off. Now, I'm only quoting a couple of use cases here, but there are dozens and dozens of other use cases for our products, but I won't get into all of that right now in the interest of time. Now, you may ask, why is this relevant for today's webinar? Now, it's relevant because applying intelligence to solving transportation problems around the world involves ingesting and analyzing and making sense of billions and billions of data points, specifically location data in real time, and offer insights. Now, that requires significant computational power, and that invariably means significant investments into both on-prem computational capabilities, but also leveraging the power of cloud services such as AWS and Azure and Google Cloud. Now, with that not so brief introduction, I'll hand it back to Bob and Chris.
Oh, that was great, and I can see a little bit in the background there, the traffic that's blurred out. I trust you guys probably helped the patterns, because that looks very efficient traffic. I live in Los Angeles. You guys need to help us a lot.
LA is actually one of our customers, Chris.
Great. I look forward to it. And it's funny how many times now that your name, Inrix, has come up, me and the whole team have noticed Inrix around different things that are out there. So again, thank you for joining us today. And, I find it fascinating. One of the common things with a lot of companies you worked with in the past, Microsoft and Dropbox and stuff, like it is all around this data and making sure it's right and moving it around, making efficiencies. Where I wanted to kind of start with today was, uh, you know, in the challenges you faced when you came aboard at Inrix. I know you started with some on-prem servers and probably some colos and stuff like that. Moving to the cloud must have been a challenge. Maybe you could tell us a little bit about why that decision was made and and how the journey went.
For sure, Chris. Look, when we started scaling our business, at first we did most of our work on-prem. But a couple of things happened. One, we increasingly became a global business. Now, not only do we have employees globally, we had customers globally, and our coverage of real-time traffic is also global. We cover road networks across well over 100 countries. Now, the second factor was increasing data density. When we started our business 15 years ago, there was no Tesla, there was no iPhone. And fast forward to today, vehicles rolling out of factories are all connected. Everyone carries smartphones, and there's been an explosion in the number of devices that are capable of providing us useful location data. And that includes data about where you are, but it's also about speed and direction, road conditions, and so on and so forth. And now we ingest more than 20 million data points per minute. And to support this level of data computation, we needed to leverage the power of the cloud. Not only that, many of our large automotive OEM customers of ours rely on us to provide real-time traffic and parking information that is displayed on the head units inside vehicles. Millions of cars on the road today use Inrix real-time traffic and parking services. And this means we have very high level of SLA commitments to our customers in terms of service availability. And finally, I have to touch on security. It is incredibly important for us to handle our data securely. Our data lake at this point has dozens of petabytes of data collected for well over 15 years. And it's incredibly important for us to be able to store and manage this data securely. So for all of these reasons, we started to work with cloud service providers a few years ago, and we have progressively moved a lot of our workload from on-prem installations to the cloud. The process itself has been a multi-year journey for us. And to this day, we still do some of our work on-prem, but an increasing portion of what we do now is in the cloud.
Great. This is a trend we're seeing everywhere, obviously, and hence one of the core things that CoreStack is trying to solve and make this easier. It's fascinating with the data all out there. I'm sure that some countries and regions are specific where you have to move cloud servers directly over to just those countries to keep data in the country and things like that. I won't get into it. I'm really curious if my car has your, if we're providing data to you every day. But we'll talk about that offline. To me, that's fascinating. So, as you started to get into the challenges and move, especially as a CFO, I know you're concerned a lot with the spend and the returns that it makes, right? You have to be efficient with this. Maybe you can talk a little bit about the first impressions of moving over to the cloud and what did you see when you started doing that?
Look, when we did a lot of our work on-prem, it was a lot easier to track costs. Most of those costs were fixed, and we could establish processes to sort of get pre-approval before our engineering teams had to buy hardware or incur CapEx. But with our transition to the cloud, we've had to rethink how we track spending and how we make teams accountable for their spend. We as finance professionals, we have software tools in place to track other spend buckets. Let's take an example like T&E. Many of us on this webinar today probably use tools like Concur to track travel expenses, right? We have HRIS tools like ADP or Zenefits or Gusto or whatever to track headcount by department. We probably use applicant tracking systems, for example, like JobVite to track open positions. We spend an enormous amount of time during planning season to discuss headcount needs by department. And this is especially true in a software business like ours, where payroll is a disproportionate amount of our overall spending, unlike, for example, a manufacturing company, right? But in our P&L, we are seeing that spending with cloud providers such as AWS or Azure is starting to increasingly become more and more important. And we have to think about how we track the spend and understand the underlying drivers for what causes the spend to go up or go down. But look, more importantly, it's not only tracking historical spend, but it's also about forecasting spend, so that we're able to anticipate what our future P&L is going to look like, and therefore manage board and investor expectations. It is incredibly important for me that I'm not blindsided by something that is going on in the business that isn't obvious to the naked eye. And I get extremely uncomfortable if I don't know the direction in which our P&L or our cash flow is headed.
Right. And I bet you this doesn't just affect you. You've brought up the cloud providers itself and probably how you work with them. But what about other partners that you work with? I know that Inrix works with a number of different partners to make its deliveries.
That's absolutely right. Look, there's a lot of work that goes on in-house in terms of development, right? But that's not all. We work with a number of partners. In a lot of cases, the solutions that we deliver to our customers are complex and involve, co-development with organizations beyond just the boundaries of Inrix. And in a lot of cases, their development environment, when I say they, I mean the partners, their development environment may or may not always be with the same cloud service provider. So it becomes increasingly complex for us to work with them to understand what costs they're incurring, how we think about revenue share, how we think about cost sharing, and so on and so forth. So really our tracking of spend cuts beyond our organizational boundaries as well.
Great. And I'm hearing a trend in everything you're talking about here, and it's really about visibility, right? It's bringing this all together, allowing you to make these better decisions, making them properly. And again, as a CFO, you're focused on what's best for your company, your products, and the delivery of those, and also making sure you have something that your customers are appreciating. It all ties together on that. What else can you do with this data now? You're starting to collect it on how your cloud spend is and how it's being managed. How does that affect your ability to make better decisions and product directions for what your customers are looking for?
No, absolutely. I think, look, a lot of times, when CFOs are asking for spend information, the default assumption is that we're looking for ways to cut costs or how do we minimize spending. But that's not all. That's only half the story, or maybe even less than half the story. In a lot of cases, we're looking at our spend patterns to help really drive thinking around our product strategy. And I'll, maybe explain what I mean by that. In our business, look, there is an element of shared spend. When we ingest billions and billions of data points into our data lake, it takes some level of computational power to make sense of all of that raw data and convert that into meaningful information. Now, that is a shared cost, and all of our products in our portfolio benefit from this. But beyond that, there's plenty of product-specific work that goes on in the cloud. And the amount of cloud resource consumption for each of these products varies. And so it's really important for us to have an understanding of which product is driving what level of spending, because that in turn helps us really understand product profitability. It helps us influence our pricing decisions and really start to think about whether we are spending money in the right areas or not. And so it's just not about cutting costs or reducing spend. It's also about driving product strategy, pricing, product profitability, and so on and so forth.
Of course. Yeah, absolutely. And, and this is something we hear quite a bit out there from other CFOs. And Bob, I hope you're still there around with us. Maybe you can shed a bit of light as well from some other things that you've heard, not just from Madhu, but other CFOs that are out there. I know you're talking to a lot of them every day.
Yeah, that's right, Chris. I mean, we talk to a lot of CFOs, and we hear some of the things that Madhu just spoke about. We hear about them again and again, right? At a broader perspective, right? Obviously, leadership is concerned about where are we in our digital transformation journey, and really they're trying to answer the question: the investments that I'm making towards those digital technologies, especially on the cloud, are they really accelerating our journey? Where are we in that journey? And the things that drive that sort of understanding is, one, visibility, right? How are we spending this money, right? All too often, the cloud cost, as Madhu mentioned, is just a line item in the CFO's budget. But we really want to be able to decompose that. That's what we hear from CFOs, to say, hey, where is this cost coming from? What are the anomalies in that? What are the trends in that data? And once I understand and have that deeper visibility, I can then marry that back into predictability to say, hey, listen, what will my cost look like in the future? Are they actually helping me get to my objectives of really kind of becoming a cloud native or a cloud first or digital transform company? So we hear about this almost every day. And I think most CFOs are really struggling to get that visibility and that predictability from that cloud costs.
Great, thanks, Bob. Very true. Getting into the whole forecasting aspect, having that predictability can really help and really resolve some of these issues, or at least lessen the sting that it takes, because we're trying to, as Madhu, you've been saying, trying to wrap your hands around this is quite a monumentous task to figure it all out. So let's talk a little bit more about some other things here. Moving along, we've talked a lot about the challenges and the complexities that are going in of moving to the cloud. And let's be real, they're there. It's a different thing. We were able to allocate those costs directly to servers in our past. But now we have these billing challenges. Are people going in and accounting for this correctly and giving you the right information? The data you're missing is essentially what's causing the problem, and you don't know what to do with that data. And, we have some various things that we can do, including automating ways we do the forecasting, getting into proactive preparation of this information so it's in your hands to make sense of that data. So let's just hit one more side of that data. When we spoke last week, Madhu, you talked about one of your biggest peeves, and I love this one. And you'll notice I used hopefully the words you did, and it was something along the lines of data that is not fresh. Tell me a little bit more about this.
It's funny that you remember what I said last week. That's right. One of my pet peeves when it comes to data visibility is really the time lag between when an event occurs and when that relevant information is made known to me. Now, if a report is not produced quickly enough, most often it isn't actionable anymore. I'm guessing a lot of the participants on this webinar are finance professionals, and if that's true, many of you know why we have a closed calendar, why we're trying to produce our P&L quickly enough at the end of the month, is because if you're going to take months and months before that information is shared, it's probably no longer useful. So for me, freshness of the data is really, really important. But what's even more important is the accuracy of the data. A lot of times when you are putting together information manually, there is an element of bias that comes into reporting. We can selectively cherry pick what we want to say and kind of not put a lot of emphasis on things that you don't want to say. And there's a lot of massaging that takes place. And a lot of times when that happens, bad news is not conveyed quickly enough. And so for me, removing bias from reporting is just as important as the freshness of the data itself. And then finally, I think the third pet peeve really is around the effort that goes into producing these reports. If a report is going to be standard, it's something that you want to produce every week, every month, whatever, you should find ways to automate it. If there is a human being somewhere sitting behind the scenes, spending weeks putting together all this information, then we are not doing something right. Tools that are available today in market are sophisticated enough that you should be able to set it and forget it, right? You should be able to then produce these reports periodically at the click of a button. And in fact, ideally not even click of a button. It should be available real time that you should just log in and be able to see. And so anytime I see any of my teams, whether it is related to cloud costs or anything else, if you're producing this more than once, how are we automating it such that there is no human intervention involved? There is no bias in the reporting. There are no errors in the reporting, and we can see it reliably.
Great, and I know that this has been a very big problem with our customers, is that same thing, right? Making sure you have the latest data, and it was funny watching the State of FinOps report as it was announced and delivered last week, and we'll be doing a webinar on this as well soon that we'll share with you all. But getting to that automation, the funny part is getting to it. One of the hardest parts was getting the humans to create it and do the automation and try to put this time into it, which is quite the irony in my mind. Humans are the problem with automation, but that's what we're trying to make easier. And I know Bob, I know you wanted to bring up something we're introducing in the product in our next deliverable, I believe at the end of the week.
That's right, Chris. Super exciting times here at CoreStack, right? Madhu hit the nail on the head, right? Having timely information is critical in this world, right? You want accurate timely information on your desktop when it's happening. And so what we're doing is we're introducing these dashboards specifically for the CFO. So everything that we spoke about today, all that visibility, all those details, all of the sort of chargeback tracking, right? All that functionality can be now presented on a dashboard so that every CFO can see the financial picture of how that money is being spent immediately at their fingertips. Now, what's really exciting is while this functionality comes out of the box, the technology is such that we can integrate it into every other piece of information you have. So the CFOs and executives really concerned not just about how much money am I spending, but do I have the right security posture? Am I meeting all the compliance standards that I need to meet? Am I maturing my implementation over time, right? Am I trending towards a more mature implementation of cloud so that I'm seeing a better value in terms of my investments, right? And I'm potentially even stack ranking every workload I have in the cloud so I can see which one of my teams are doing exceptionally well at this and maybe which one of my teams actually need additional help as they're compared to their peers. So this dashboarding capability can certainly, solve the critical challenges Madhu's laid out from a CFO perspective immediately, but it's very extensible to really give you a holistic picture of your digital transformation journey. And that is actually a picture that can be shared across all the C-levels because that is exactly what a company wants to understand it and see it, right? So we're making that available today, and we'd love to work with some people on the phone here to say, hey, can we do that for your company? Right, that's something we can make available. Maybe talk about it a little bit later, Chris.
Yeah, absolutely, and I'm looking forward to this because this takes us out of the one big thing. One of the big problems with data is, again, giving it in real time and giving the truth behind that data. And as Madhu has been talking about, this is one of the big problems. It's not that people are necessarily intentionally not giving us the right info, but it's human nature. It's human nature to start hiding some of those things. And you don't want to be the one to deliver to your top boss and their bosses, which could be the board of these results. But at the same point, you have to tell the truth. You have to have this data. So we're going to be rolling this out for those that are listening to this call live or in the recording. We'll make that available to you. We're going to have some upcoming webinars to share a little more details on it. It's not really the purpose of it here today, but we wanted to make sure that we actually gave you that information so you know it's there. And Madhu, let's work together and make sure we get your team up to speed. If somebody hasn't reached out to you yet in the next couple of days to a week, let's get on the line and let's get this going. Because I think this is going to be really valuable. So please reach out, everybody. Otherwise, this has really been fantastic. I think the whole goal of these webinars is really to have relatable information. I hope that's what people are finding on the line here, that, these problems or these challenges that Madhu is sharing and what we're putting in our product are based on what your needs are too, and you can relate to that. And definitely reach out to our team. We'll send we'll put a follow-up up there, and I'll give you an email address. You can reach us at the end here. But what I wanted to do is just a quick last opportunity between both Madhu and Bob, if you don't mind. Anything else off the cuff that you think might be good to add here and you'd like to say to everybody and give them some advice maybe or something like that? Let's start with our guest, Madhu. Anything else you'd like to add in here?
Sure, Chris. I think, one of the things that I like to tell my teams frequently is there's only one thing that's worse than no data, and that is bad data. And so I always tell my teams that, please don't shy away from complexity. I know it's a lot easier for us to simply, spend all of our time tracking headcount or something simple like that. But, just because tracking cloud spend is complex doesn't make it any less important. And so I tell my teams to lean into discomfort, even if it's an area that you don't fully understand. Take the time to understand it, spend time with the teams to really figure out what might be better ways for us to get a better understanding of what's going on there so that we can actually add value to our business partners. So really my two parting thoughts are like, one, lean into discomfort, even if it's complex, do what's necessary, do what's right for the business, and ensure that the data that's being presented to us is not massaged in ways that it's not conveying the real information.
Oh, so well said. And to me, discomfort is also growth, personal growth, and moving on, and taking on that next challenge because it can add a little more to every day. So, Bob, I know you're never short on words. I know you've got a couple of things you'd love to
Yeah, but you hit the nail on the head, right? Having bad data is worse than having no data, right? So yeah, we agree with that, and we want to give our prospects and our customers access to great data. So, Chris, we have something that we call a FinOps assessment. This is a zero-touch, 24-hour exercise where we can basically automatically look at your cloud spend and give you unparalleled visibility into how you're spending that money and what the forecast would look like and bring some predictability to those costs. So this is normally a $5,000 assessment. We're offering absolutely no charge to everybody as part of this webinar today. And again, it's no touch on your side. We just need to talk to you for 20 minutes and we can get this assessment set up. And we can even show you and we can show you all the details around your expenses. So that's one thing I like to make everybody take advantage of. And the next thing is, again, we'll be rolling out these executive dashboards, specifically targeting the CFOs out there in the coming weeks. And anybody here that wants to work with us to help us fine tune those dashboards for their particular business, we'll give you a $5,000 or 5,000 credits towards implementation of those dashboards. So again, it becomes a no risk, high value return to help us basically fine tune our technology as it pertains to CFOs and really deliver value back to your organization. So hopefully people out there will take advantage of that. Please reach out to us.
Great. And I do have a quick thing just on the FinOps assessment here before we go. Again, just recapping what Bob has mentioned there. Reach out to us and we can get this going. All of us jump in and we'll help out as many customers as we can on here because it's an eye opener. When you start to look at the FinOps assessment. And then we can share some other stuff. If you're just getting into CoreStack, trying to understand it a little more, we can make it really, simple. It's a very wide and deep product that covers a lot of territory. And we're only talking about the FinOps side today. There's the security side, the SecOps, and then the cloud operation side, CloudOps as well. But let's definitely feel free to reach out to us and we'll help you get this assessment going because we know how valuable this is. So I wanted to, conclude and say thank you very much, Bob, and of course, Madhu, for joining us. This has been really enlightening. I've learned a couple of new things today. I appreciate your time, and I look forward to working with you as we, continue the journey forward, Madhu, as well. Thanks a lot, and everybody, please feel free to reach out. Like I said, you can go to our webpage or you can just email us here by going to the webpage and reaching out with the contact us on there. Thank you.
Thanks, Chris. Thanks, Madhu.
See you, Bob. Bye, Chris.
Take care, guys. Bye-bye.